Take care.
13th of February, Rabbi Furst, Mishna Berura.
Good morning, Lou.
Morning,
Okay.
Rabbi.
Good morning. All right. This is our second share this morning. We're having Shlomo First here, Yeshiva Salamachi, here in Shalom Care of Zoom. And we are learning our second share, Mr. Berura Hilchos Purim. We're in Tav Reish Pei Tet. We're starting Hakol Hayavim B'Kriyas Megillah. Okay. Yeah. Who would like to begin?
We're at Sif Aleph.
If Aleph, right?
Okay. I volunteer.
Go for it, Lou.
Thank you. Hakol Chayavin Bikri Asa Anashim. The Nashim Gerim Vadim Me Shuch Rim
Shuchari, right? Freed slaves.
freed slaves. Oh, Ume Tanechim Es Hakitanim Likrosa. So everybody is obligated in the reading, men and women, converts, slaves and freed slaves, mechanchim, I don't know.
That means you train from the word chinuch. You train or educate.
Oh, teachers?
No, mechanchim. As a katanim lacrosse, you educate the children that they should read it as well. And there's a mitzvah of chinuch as well, right?
Oh, I see. Likrosas to read.
That's right. Meaning again, it's the mitzvah is kriyas and Megillah. It's just like there's a mitzvah of kriyas Shema. You have to read Shema in the morning, right? You have to call the Megillah. You have to read the Megillah. Now, for the most part, we have the shliach tzibur being motzi us in our obligation, but really each individual is obligated to read the Megillah himself. It's not really the mitzvah is not to listen to the shofar, to listen to the Megillah. Listening, you have by mitzvahs of listening. That's like, for example, listening to the shofar. You have no obligation to blow the shofar. You have an obligation to listen to the shofar that's being blown. You don't have any personal individual obligation to blow the shofar. That's not that way with Kriyas Megillah. Kriyas Megillah, you actually have a personal obligation to read the Megillah, right? And however, in general, we fulfill our obligation through a shliach tzibur. He's our shliach to be motzias, just like Friday night. You're probably familiar with making kiddush Friday night, and usually the head of the household will make kiddush for the assembled family and guests. But each person in the family, each one of the guests have their own particular personal chiyuv, right, to say the kiddush, right? But your yotzi shmei kaina. So he is listening is like answering, like saying it. So here also that even by the children, you should be really giving them training that able to read, and whether that means that they should be trained to listen, that's another story. But we'll see about that.
So, wonder why it says slaves. Is that only slaves that have taken on the mitzvahs, that have gone to the mikvahs, or is it all slaves?
That's the definition of a slave. Has to needs Mila and Tevila. Any slave needs Mila and Tevila.
Right, and these are free slaves. We'll see. We'll see in the Mishnah. He'll mention a point or two about the slaves. Also, there's a little bit of a bir halacha if you want, we can see the Berura as well.
I had learned that a slave has the option of going to the mikveh. You're saying every slave has to go to the mikveh?
The Gemara says that we give him a choice. We give him a choice for a year, right? He has a year to decide that he's going to get bris milah and go to the mikveh and become a Jewish slave. And if we say if not, listen, if you're not interested, we'll sell you to Jose or Ivan or Fritz. And if you like working for Fritz and being a slave for Fritz better than us, go ahead. But you have your year's up. Your year's up, and if you don't like it, you're going to be sold. And actually, the Gemara says the Rambam brings down that in terms of Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, we give them a choice to fulfill the Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and if they don't, they're Chayav Misa. We can take out our swords and just eliminate them. Help control the world population growth.
I'm sorry, you're saying that if they choose not to go to the mikveh, then we kill them?
No, we say we're gonna sell them to a goy. You don't want to join us, so we're gonna send you to a goy. We don't have a reason to keep foreigners amongst our midst. So if you're not happy converting to become a Jewish slave, so we'll sell you. No problem. Sell you to the Arabs, to the Chinese. There are a lot of countries that still have legalized slavery. And sell them to Borneo.
Okay, so what was the point about the sword?
That's if they don't want to. That's the Gemara and the Rambam bring down. If they don't want to keep Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, even without conversion, they still have to keep Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. If they don't,
I see.
If you don't, we give them a choice. You either keep Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, or we'll put you out of your misery. It's better that they're not in this world if they're gonna disobey the laws of the Kadosh Baruch Hu decreed for them. So we'll help them either make a good decision, or we'll help them stop living a purposeless life.
Now this is freed slaves, but not slaves that are still slaves?
Right. Again, you have your classic slave is Keisha, right? Just as a woman has a mitzvah of Kriyas Megillah, right? A slave also has a mitzvah of Kriyas Megillah.
Right. So shouldn't a slave be obligated also?
Right, but that's only if he's chayiv, only if he's chayiv like Isha in mitzvahs lo saseh. The chiddush is, even though the chiddush is by a woman that it's a mitzvah derabanan bizman grama, right? So it's a chiddush that she's chayiv in that because it's bizman grama and it's also derabanan, number one. And a further chiddush, even a slave who's theoretically chayiv just like a woman is chayiv. They're also obligated in the Megillah.
Okay. When it says va'avadim meshuchrarim, is that one thing or is that two things?
No, there's all one thing. That's an Eved who is meshuchar.
So I'm asking, why doesn't it say an Eved and an Eved that's meshuchach?
No, only freed stays. A Eved who is not free is not chayiv. We'll see. Mr. Brewer will discuss it.
Okay.
It's got an aleph in the Mr. Brewer.
All right. Now, a freed slave is a Jew.
It's chayiv mitzvahs keisha, yeah.
So why does it have to say a freed slave? Isn't a freed slave obligated in everything a Jew is obligated in?
Right, but you would think that the pursuing Nisa, the chiyuv of Megillah, is only for those who was relevant to, right? It wasn't relevant to a slave because his ancestors were not involved with the miracles that took place. So it's a chiddush that he's chayav.
I see. Okay.
Right. We'll see.
Berura?
We'll get to the Berura. The Berura explains the difference between if they're freed or they're not freed. We'll see. Hold on.
All right. So Mishnah Berura,
Yeah.
Binashim, women. V'af dahakriya he devar she hazman grama. Even though the reading of the Megillah is time bound, Nikol Makom Chayavos She'af Hein Hayu Ba'oso Hanes. Nevertheless, they're obligated that even they were they were involved in the miracle.
Right. They were saved through the miracles. The women were also saved, right? All those Haman did had intended everybody, right?
So this word hayu means saved.
No, hayu. They were also in the involved with the miracle.
Involved. Okay. The mitechila haisa hagazera gam alehem. And from the beginning, this decree was upon them. Ke dichsiv bakara, as it is written in the Megillah.
Right, as it's written there. I mean, at the beginning, it was also they were in the mess because it's written in the
Bakra means the verses of the Megillah.
The verses of the Megillah, right?
V'lechein tzarich ha'ish likrosa b'veiso lifnei habisulos v'hamisharsos. And therefore, it's necessary for the husband to read in the house before his young daughter.
Yeah, meaning the unmarried daughters and the his servants, like the maids, the Jew there in the house.
They can't go to shul.
No, it was really that's basically a modern invention. The shuls were not made for women in general. Most shuls were not made for women to go to. There was no. Mr. Brewer is going to explain it. He's going to speak about that. That even if they had an Ezra's Noshim, but the Ezra's Noshim wasn't situated in a way that they were able to hear the Megillah properly. And we'll get when we get further on in the halachas of the Kriyas Megillah, we're gonna see that you have to be very careful to hear every single word of the Megillah clearly. If you don't, then you're not Yotze, and you'd have to hear the whole Kriya all over again from the very beginning, right?
Right.
So in general, if there was a Ezra's Nashim, it was either one not situated in a place where they could hear it readily, and number two, plus it was probably not very large at all. And I remember I was in the Alt Nul Shul of the Maral Prague in Prague, and the Ezra's Nashim, I tell you, the Ezra's Nashim was about the size of I wouldn't even call it maybe maybe a closet, so worth of a closet space, if I remember correctly. It wasn't more room for more than maybe 4 or 5 women there to be there, if I'm not mistaken. And so shuls weren't built for women participation. They had no need to. Women had no need to come to shul, right? Very rarely did women have a need to come to shul.
What about Presumay Nisa?
So whether they're so here you see that they're chayiv, right? They're chayiv in Kriyas Megillah, right? But those who are going to be remaining at home, right? Whether the women gather together and hear the Megillah in groups, that we'll see the rest of the Mishnah Berura. See mixes makomos.
Uviktsas?
Yes.
Mikomos Nohagim Shehem Holchos Leves Hakenesis Le Ezras Nashim Lishmoa HaKriya. Okay, what is this word? Viktsas?
Mixer from Katsas, meaning there are a few places that they're accustomed that they go to the Beit Knesset.
To the women's section to hear the reading. Achein Tzarich Iyun Eich Yotzin Sham Nashim. And therefore it's necessary. What's this word iyun?
Sorry, and it requires further analysis. Sorry, it requires investigation.
How they fulfill their mitzvah? How the women fulfill the mitzvah? Di'i afshar lishmoa sham kadin. If it's impossible for them to hear there according to the law.
Right.
So some of them did go to the Ezras Nashim, but the Mishnah Berura is a little puzzled by how that works.
Yeah, if they're not going to hear it properly, so it's a and how they're what they're gaining by going there. That it's not the Ezras Nashim was not designed for the women's participation, so it's very difficult to say how and what they gain by going to the shul to listen to the Megillah.
Right. So there's two principles that I'm wondering about. One is Presumay Nisa, and the other is there's a principle that the more people you have, the more honor it is to Hashem.
Right. Well, that's Presumay Nisa is connected with that. That's Amrav Hadras Melech. You have two things: Presumay Nisa and Amrav Hadras Melech. Yeah.
All right. Well, I learned yesterday that if you regularly daven in a house, a minyan in a house, you're obligated to go to a Beis Knesset to hear the Megillah because of Presumay Nisa and what was that, a Hadras Melech?
Yeah, Amrav Hadras Melech.
Right. But if you regularly daven in a Beis Midrash, even though it's smaller than the Beis Knesset, you're not obligated to abandon that minyan.
Right.
But the principle of abandoning the minyan in the house also makes me wonder if you're going to make the men abandon the minyan in the house in order to go to the Beis Knesset. You would think that you would say the women have to also go to the Beis Knesset if possible, particularly since it's not a hog, it's not Kodesh.
Right. Yeah, well, here we have an overriding principle. We have Kibbut Bas Melka Penima, that the covet of the princess is within. That the women there's a halacha, similar halacha you're probably familiar with by Hadlakas Ner Hanukkah, right? That the women in general don't light the menorah, right? Even though that they do have a chiyuv. There's a chiyuv, the women do have a chiyuv to light the menorah, but the halacha is that they don't light the menorah, except perhaps if they're living on their own, and there's no head of the household to light for them, and we might see them. But the question is asked, well, presuming Nisa, why aren't women expected to light the menorah as well? So I'm not mistaken. I think the Chasam Sofer, I'm not sure, I've forgotten, it's been a while since I've seen it. Chasam Sofer, if I'm not mistaken, or other portion, explain that the mitzvah of Hadlachas Ner Hanukkah has to be done bechutz, has to be done in the rochov, in the street, and that's the presuming Nisa. And since the women are regulated to remain in the houses, the mitzvah is not for them. Also, questions asked: why don't women have a mitzvah of kiddush levana? Aside from the fact that it could be it's zman grum as well, but also since the kiddush levana is done in public, out in the street, so it's not a mitzvah which women participate in because they're regulated to remain in the house. So therefore, these type of mitzvahs that are done in public, in mass, women are not obligated in those mitzvahs.
Okay. Back to the mechaber.
Yeah. Let's see. No. We've got the Mushucharim. We have base and the about the slaves here. We have the free slaves.
Oh, Mishucharim, freed slaves. Aval enam Mishucharim Peturim Diga Mi Nashim Le'inyan Zeh. But the freed slaves are not exempt. What is this word? Digri'e?
If they're not freed, slaves which are not freed are patur. They're exempt from the kriya. The giuri menashim linians that they're worse off. They're less than women in terms of this halacha.
Oh, they're not freed. Then they're not patur.
No, if they're not freed, they are patur.
If they're not freed, they're patur. Oh, they're patur, meaning they don't have to hear the Megillah.
Right, they're exempt. Patur, they're exempt. If they're not freed, then they're exempt. Because as the Sharatzian, you have the Sharatzian in Sifkat and Daled, the Gra, Sifkat and Daled in the Sharatzian.
Cut and Daled. Hagra.
Yes.
Vidaiso.
Vidaito, his opinion is, the Gra's opinion is,
Vidaito, his opinion is to kan lo shayich ha ta'am shehayu v'oso hanes. The Gura's opinion is that here it's not appropriate. A reason is that they're not involved in the nace.
Right, since they're
Slaves
not,
are not involved in the nace.
right, they're not part of the Jewish people, right? Not now, and certainly not 3,000 years ago, right? Their forefathers certainly were not part of the Jewish people 3,000 years ago. So therefore, they're not included in the miracle, right? And therefore, they're not obligated in the presuming to publicize the miracle.
And yet, once they're freed, they're also not obligated. They're also not involved. They also were not involved. Their ancestors were not involved. Yet, nevertheless, they are obligated.
Now that they're freed, now they have a connection to the Jewish people, and therefore they have a obligation. But based on your point, look at the next point in the Mishnah Berura.
Back to the Mishnah Berura. V'yesh omrim de'afilu heinam enam me shuch rarim chayavim. But there is an opinion that even those who are not freed slaves are obligated.
Yeah, so this needs a little bit work. Why? What's the opinion that if they're not freed, why should they be obligated if they're even slaves which are not free?
Well, I would think because he does have a connection. He is a kind of a Jew because he has the mitzvahs of a woman.
Right.
He's gone to the mikveh. He's had a bris milah. He's taken on to keep the mitzvahs of a Jew to a certain extent. So that gives him a kesher.
Right, could be. I mean, well, I'm not. I mean, well, look. The question is when unfreed slave of a Jew, right? What is his status in terms of his relationship to the Jewish people? Is he just considered to be part of the rechush, the possessions of a Jew? He's part of just like a cow, a dog belongs to the Jew. So you have a non-freed slave that's also part of the possessions of a Jew, right? But there's no real connection. Let's see, we have time. There's a bir halacha here. Maybe take a look at the bir halacha. You see where it says over here, avadim. I am Mishna Brewer.
I see the bir halacha. Avadim. I don't see where avadim is. Oh, here, avadim. I see it.
Yeah.
Ayin Mishna Berura Yesh Omrim Da'afilu Einam Mishuchrarim Chayavin Vehu Mimagin Avraham Va'af Dehagra Dacha Divarav Haino Rak Bedas Ha Rambam and
Smad.
the smog. Okay, so what are we saying here? We're saying look over there at the Mishnah Berura. There are those who say that a filu, someone who's is not a freed slave, a slave that's not freed, is obligated, and and he is the Magen Abraham. It's the opinion of the Magen Abraham.
That's right, and the smog, right?
And the Gra.
And no, excuse me, with smog, that's the Dasa Rambam and the smog. Aval, Alpha Gra, I'm sorry, Alpha Gra Docha Devoro.
What's Dacha?
The Gra is pushing away the opinion of the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham is of the opinion that Einem Mushucharim, non-freed slaves are obligated, but the Gaon doesn't like that. He pushes away his words, right?
And he says only the opinion of the Rambam and the Smog.
Right.
Aval Bibahag.
Right, that's another Sefer Bahag.
Halo Mivoar Lehedya Digam Avadim Chayavin. Is it not from other Hedya is
Explicit in the Bahag. The Bahag says that is it not explicitly openly stated that Gam the slaves Avadim Hayavim.
But slaves that are not free are obligated. Mechain ha tiku bishmo biso sa fos tosafos arachin. And likewise, there's a permissibility in the name of Tosfos. What is arachin?
That's in the Tosfos and arachin. That's a Masech in the Gemara.
Oh. There's a permissibility, but according to Tosfos in arachin, Ella de'ain chayavin rak bishmiya velo
Listening, but not in reading it.
bikriya. He's obligated in hearing, but not in reading,
Right.
according to the Tosfos.
Right.
Vida dile hotzi acherim bivadai ein yicholim lechulei alma, lechulei alma, according to everybody.
Right. That the Vechein Atiku Bishmo Betozer and Ella the Ein Chay when the only one Chay in listening, but not in reading it. If they a non-freed slave wants to motzi somebody else, definitely according to all opinions, he's not able to motzi somebody else.
By reading.
Yeah.
Right, because he has no obligation to read.
Right.
Diladas behag halo gabe nashim ein motzi os acherim uchadil kamei. And according to the opinion of the Hag,
women can't motzi acherim. Women cannot motzi somebody else, right? As we're going to see later on, as we'll see later on.
as we'll see later on. So that's for a different reason though, because a woman is obligated to read.
She's obligated to read, but yeah, but even she who's obligated to read can't be motzi somebody else.
Right. V'hu hadin gabe avadim the din echad lahem. And
The same law applies to the slaves, that they have the same law, the same din applies to slaves as it does to women, because they're both only obligated in general in mitzvah aseh bisman grama.
right. Ule da'as hagra the Rambam the Perush Harambam
Right?
the Hasmag Hello Peturin Legamre. So it's
according to the Rambam and the Smag, the unfreed slaves, they're completely exempt. So yeah, you have several opinions here as to whether they're obligated or not, whether they're obligated just in listening but not in reading, whether they're not obligated at all. It's quite okay. Yeah. All right. We've actually gone over time. All right, we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.
all right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Very good reading. Thank you. Liz, it's 3. Have a good morning, and we'll see you all.
I think we should try and